Okay, so what I want to talk to you guys about now is manhood. We're going to look at manhood as a spectrum ranging from toxic masculinity and masculine stereotypes to reasonable expectations of what it is to be a man. We have Lady Macbeth representing the toxic masculinity and masculine stereotypes, and then we've got Banquo representing the more reasonable, more understanding, more achievable expectations of manhood. Lady Macbeth, in particular, when she's talking to Macbeth, she says things when trying to convince him to kill Duncan. She says things like, "You're not a man. I could never love you because you're not a man." I think she has that wonderful line, and it's very vivid when she says this, like, that I have given suck and would have plucked my nipple from the baby's mouth, gumless mouth, and dashed its brains against the wall had I promised so to you. Right there, if you remember in class when we went over that, we were all taken aback, and we are just like, oh my goodness, she actually said this. This is so crazy, especially for a mother. And so we can go ahead and talk about what it is for Lady Macbeth to represent toxic masculinity, the stereotypes of manhood, what it is for to having a female character represent this. And let's go ahead and talk about Banquo on the opposite side of the spectrum, where he is more rational, and he is kind of showing this: a real man has the strength to restrain from his desires and kind of wait, especially when we see him talking to the witches. And when he first meets the witches, he's just like all in it, and he's like, oh, this is so much fun, and look at what we're getting, and the prophecy, and ooh, my sons are gonna be king, who cares if I'm not king, and everything like that. And then once Macbeth actually does become Thane of Cawdor, Banquo takes a step back and says, whoa, we really need to look at this, and we're talking to these unnatural things, and all of this is going on. This is a bit much. We need to stop. Whenever Macbeth tries to get him to go along with his thoughts and ideas about, like, well, let's go ahead and take power, and if you're on my side, then of course you're going to be justly rewarded. And Banquo says things like, as long as my morality isn't compromised, as long as my purity isn't going to be affected, I need to know that I'm doing the right thing by myself, and in order for me to go along with this, because if not, it's going to be really difficult for me to maintain this relationship. This might seem silly, but in Harry Potter book 1, when Neville stands up to Harry, Ron, and Hermione saying, like, I can't let you go because you guys are going to go ahead and cost Gryffindor more points, and on and on and on. And then Hermione goes, but your Vickers still jealous, and freezes him. Then what is it? That really is a representation of just how hard it is to stand up for what you believe in and go ahead and let your friends know that what you think is doing is wrong. And I think that's the idea that Banquo is trying to put forward with his, well, that's the idea that Shakespeare is trying to put forward with Banquo's character. Then we see Macbeth sliding back and forth between these two characters and the relationship that he has with them. Obviously, he loves both characters. Lady Macbeth, he would love her in a more romantic way, and Banquo in a more brotherly way. But who's to say that you should always give into one relationship over another? You should really kind of look at relationships as a spectrum and see what this person is trying to do and everything like that. Is that what kind of connotates or denotates a real man? We can look at manhood in today's society and by today's standards, and how is this changing? Is it still this idea of men are in charge, men are doing this? Are things coming about to say that that's not necessarily true? Manhood, like I said before, has a lot of fun things that you can get into with your video essay, and you really can dive deep into purely the theme of manhood, or maybe talk about the idea, is ambition purely a man's trait? Is that like the big deal for them? I think this one's a lot of fun too. So far, nature and the unnatural and manhood, those are my two favorite themes. So if you guys have this theme, you better impress. Okay, bye.